Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? The other spots that the Saints are going to have to look at, defensive line. And, whether or not they use their first pick, either 29 or 40 on a defensive lineman, you better believe that they're going to address defensive line early in the draft. And very likely in free agency as well. And over at ESPN.com, they did sort of like a tandem post, publication with Football Outsiders. And they listed the best free agent target or acquisition for all 32 NFL teams. And for the Saints, the player they listed was Jaron Reed. Now, you probably remember Jaron Reed. He was a great defensive lineman at Alabama. He was on that 2015 team alongside A'Shawn Robinson. Yes, famously the team that stonewalled Leonard Fournette in Tuscaloosa that day. And Jaron Reed was a second-round pick of the Seattle Seahawks. He was in Seattle for a few years and was very productive. As a matter of fact, he had 22 sacks in his first 5 seasons in the NFL in Seattle. But now, whoever he plays with in 2023 will be his 4th team in as many years. He was in Seattle and then went to Kansas City, then this for 1 year, then this last year at 21, then this last year in 22. Reed was in Green Bay, and now whoever he plays for in 2023 will be his 4th team in as many years. So he's become a bit of a journeyman. He's 30 years old right now, but still an available player. He, in his Football Outsiders piece, they note that Jaron Reed played 68% of Green Bay's defensive snaps this past year. And that leads all free agent interior defensive linemen. So you're talking about a veteran player whose most productive days are behind him, but still a guy who has been available, been durable, and has been productive when he's been out there. So I always like to look at Spotrac to see that they have a market value function to see what a guy like that would command. And maybe the most enticing thing about a guy like Jaron Reed is that last year in Green Bay, he played under a 1-year deal, and it was super affordable. It was 1 year, $3.25 million. So you're talking about a guy in Jaron Reed who's been productive, who's been available, and who also is affordable. So if you're able to sign him to a similar contract in that, even if it's a multi-year deal, or if it's a 1-year deal at roughly $3 million, that's a very palatable number for a guy that would sort of help reinforce your numbers. Now, when you look at the other free agents available at the defensive tackle position, Fletcher Cox is at the top of the list. He's 32 years old. Javon Hargrave both from the Eagles, also there at the top of the list, 30 years old. Dalvin Tomlinson. There's David Onyemata from the Saints. They put David Onyemata's market value, by the way, at take that off, please. They put David Onyemata's market value at $9.6 million per year. They're projecting a 3-year, $29 million contract for David Onyemata in this free agency cycle. Now, I don't know if that's going to be too much for New Orleans. I don't know if someone else is going to jump in and be able to offer David Onyemata more than that. But you'd love to have Onyemata back. You'd love to be able to supplement with an affordable veteran like Jaron Reed, and then theoretically draft that dominant interior player at the top of the draft. Like Todd McShay earlier this week mentioned Brian Breesy from Clemson. And I'm not saying he's going to be that player, but I keep looking at the great teams in the NFL, and certainly the great defenses in the NFL. And you look at Chris Jones at Kansas City. We talked about Fletcher Cox there in Philadelphia. You think about Jeffrey Simmons in Tennessee. There's just those types of guys are, I hesitate to mention Aaron Donald because he's just on such a different level than everybody else. But when you have that dominant interior player, it matters so much. And as an illustration, the Saints had that great stretch of great run defenses. In 2018, they were second in the NFL in run defense. In 2019, they were fourth. 2020, they were third. 2021, they were fourth. I mean, you had 4 consecutive years where they finished second, fourth, third, fourth in run defense. I mean, it's also obvious when you trace it back how that happened. This year, by the way, the Saints were 24th in the NFL in run defense. If you go back further, 2014, they were 29th. 2015, they were 31st. You don't have to remember this. Just understand the pattern. So they went 29th, 31st, 14th, 14th, 2nd, 4th, 3rd, 4th, 24th. Well, what happened? Well, in 2016, they drafted Sheldon Rankins and David Onyemata in the same draft, and they hit on both those interior players and were able to supplement with other players behind them, and they created a really dominant interior line, guys like Malcolm Brown. I mean, you know the names at this point, but that's what happened. Well, of course, Sheldon Rankins leaves in free agency. David Onyemata missed 6 games due to the PED suspension. Now he's getting a little long in the tooth. You've just had a lot of turnover there, and you haven't replaced those bodies adequately. And so you saw what happened this year. You went from 4th in the NFL in rush defense to 24th. It's a part you didn't forget how to coach defense. Same staff as Dennis Allen. You didn't replace the personnel on the interior. So it's just a must. It's not a on a wish list. It's not a want. It's a must. You've got to go add dominant interior players if you want to get that defense, especially that run defense, back up to par. And maybe it's a guy like Jaron Reed. Certainly, it's got to be someone high in this year's draft. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.